happy Friday, and thanks for tuning in to RadioFreeRhinecliff.org. In this show in particular, correct me if I'm Norm. I'm your host, Norm, and I'm thrilled to be here tonight with Harris Burkhart. Hi, Harris.
Hi, Normie. How are you?
Fine. Thanks for asking. How are you?
I'm so happy to be here at the Epicurean in Rhinecliff, New York.
At the Nook in the Epicurean in beautiful Rhinecliff, New York.
I love this room so much.
It's a cool little place, right?
It's awesome.
Once a week, I get to come here and do this. But this is the first time ever I had somebody of your tender years. How old are you?
I am 19 years old. Would you believe it?
Yeah, I would. Only because you've been good friends with my boy Moss for a long time,
yes.
Like since third grade.
Shout out Mossy Mag.
Is he going to be? He's not going to be listening.
No, but he's a Gino. That's my Gino right there. I love him very much.
What does that mean, Gino?
It's just a nickname we have for each other.
Really?
He really came up with it, but
what the hell?
I don't know. Yeah, Moss and me have really all of the Rhinebeck kids have like a little sublingo that they kind of acknowledge each other by, and it's really a cute little thing that you don't get anywhere else. Like when I went to college, I kind of found myself trying to use those idiosyncrasies on other people. Yeah. And they were like, what is that? And I was like, oh, maybe I should try to adjust better to the people around me.
Well, I'll tell you, I mean, it's I think a special thing, and you'll have it with different groups of people as you move through your life. But I don't think it necessarily travels well, those kinds of things, like from Rhinebeck to where are you in college?
I go to the wonderful Syracuse University in Syracuse, New York. Shout out Central New York and all my homies who I have met and created wonderful friendships with. I actually think it's funny because going to a school of that size, you kind of come back to a town like Rhinebeck and it's like, oh, wow, this really is a lot smaller than I initially kind of acknowledged growing up here.
Right. Well, you grew up here. It's your context. It's your, and at a certain age, it's your entire universe.
It's all. It's really all I ever think about. It's kind of the most wild thing to think about.
Rhinebeck?
Well, the juxtaposition of Rhinebeck in how I live my life at school and elsewhere, and just kind of like, growing up in a town like this where everybody kind of knows each other, and the relationships that you foster are usually kind of tended to frequently, and you kind of just can build really friendly acquaintances with people, and it's just kind of an awesome thing that you don't get anywhere else.
And it's fabulous. And apart from that, what were some of the best things about growing up in this town?
It's kind of funny because COVID really showed you that there's like an industrialized market for living here. Like it's like you can advertise living in the Mid-Hudson Valley because Rhinebeck is the it spot. And I really would like to say that Woodstock did that first and then Rhinebeck.
The it spot in the Hudson Valley.
Yeah, and it's kind of become commercialized to the point where it's you've seen town on a weekend in the middle of summer. It's like a vacation town now.
It's nuts.
It's wild. And so, having that perspective, being on the other side of, 2020 to middle of 2021, I look back on me just being a child and growing up in Rhinebeck and being like, wow, this is a small place. You go down to the city, you go to Boston, you can go to Poughkeepsie. It's like, this is so much larger. But then, I went to college, but also the pandemic hit. And you really realize, even though it's a small place to kind of grow up and become a person, over time, while I've become more, cognizant of what's going on around me, more and more people have wanted to move here. And it kind of feels like as I've become more myself, there's just more people around me, no matter what.
And,
it's really
more and more people want to move here, which is really happened with the pandemic.
Yeah.
Does that make you appreciate this town you grew up in a little bit more?
In two ways, because one, I can really appreciate like pre-pandemic Rhinebeck and kind of remember what that was like, because it really was drastically different, and you know that, and you know that, and in kind of in indescribable ways, I would say, even like intangible ways, it was different. But then there also, the housing market, and people wanting to start and raise families here because it's a great school district and we have good politicians and good, relatively decent infrastructure. There's all that. There's all that on the table.
And what would you say the worst thing was about growing up in this small town?
Kind of feeling like, you know, you're just outside of the suburbs. You're not even in the suburbs. You are in a rural place, and you feel, or at least I felt, a little bit disconnected from being able to be in an urban space, which kind of, you know, even though we do have one of my favorite aspects of the Hudson Valley, the Ryan Cliff train station that connects you to New York City, it doesn't mean that it's super accessible to get there. And so it felt a little bit far away at times when I was younger, but as I got older and like was able to really understand where I was, then
far away from sort of the major cultural capitals.
Yes,
and
I'm the major cultural capital of New York, because
right,
you know, when you're young and growing up here, that's what you think about, just
right,
kind of going down there.
And did you go there a lot with your family when you were a kid?
When my mother was working at an education corporation in New York, I don't know how old was I? I was like definitely 10, 11, 12, 13. Uh-huh. Around then is when we started, you know, she was commuting, and I would try to come down a little bit more often because I know that she, you know, she doesn't love commuting. And I would just kind of be like, oh, Mom, like, can I come down with you guys?
Oh,
And,
that's sweet.
yeah. And, you know, as I've gotten older and gained more freedom, I've been able to go down to New York from here and just experience that. But it doesn't mean that I didn't like growing up in Rhinebeck. I think it made me who I am today. And
now you mentioned your mom, and it leads right into one of the prepared questions I have, which is, which parent do you like best?
Okay, Norm, that's fucked up. You can't say that.
All right, I got a backup question.
Okay,
you've got lots of friends, and lots of those friends have fathers.
Yes.
Which friend's father is your favorite?
This is the greatest question. Actually. Everybody knows. At least all the kids around me and Moss's age, I would say within a 3-year older and younger difference, knows that Rhinebeck parents are like Pokemon. Like you gotta catch them all at some point. And you know, Jonathan, Big JB, JB1.
That's my guy.
That's my dad.
Yeah.
You know, he'll be up at IXL Gym, and Davin Green, or
are
like. Are
you circling
Jamie.
around an answer to this important question?
No, I'm not. I'm just saying, like,
I see.
The Rhinebeck parents are about town. They get out, and you know that's a good thing. But it also gives you a playing field for them. Like, who's out? Who'd you see today? So I see, you know, I walk to the gas station to buy myself an aloe beverage, and I see Norm on his porch, and that's always a treat. So Norm's in my top 5. Good
enough. Say no more. Next question: who's your favorite sister?
So that's really easy. It's Lucy. I'm just joking. It's Rena's my sister. Rena's probably going to pick me up from this when we're done, because
I'll give you a lift home if you want.
Rena wants to come see she probably wants to come bully me after this.
Oh, that's so sweet. You think she's listening? Who's listening?
I don't know. I wonder. Listen, if any of my friends hear this ever, just know that I really hope that I could
more than 5.
I really hope that I can get you to listen to this, because this is my podcasting debut, and I feel
we're doing it live right now, but it'll be up on
Providence, Rhode Island.
Up on the
let's go.
Up on the interwebs later on. All right, I got more prepared questions. True or false? The New York Yankees are the greatest team in the history of baseball.
I would say they're the greatest franchise, only because of the history behind it. Wow, I did not know I was going to get thrown a baseball question. Wow, that's crazy.
I like the way you did that.
Yeah.
Throwing a baseball question.
Yeah, I didn't even mean to say that, but now I'm just going to pretend like I did. The Yankees have been around for forever, and the Yankees have the most titles because most of those titles were won before there was color TV. If Nicosia ever hears this, you know that burn I have on you. The Yankees have been around forever, and so I would say, just historically, in the amount of championships, you know, they've won over several decades. They are the most storied franchise in baseball. Are they the best? Also this year, statistically, yes, they are. It doesn't mean that they're going to win the World Series. They probably won't, but. You know, all my friends and family and people who know me know my stance on the Yankees is, you know, I'm against them. So
you're against them.
Mm-hmm.
Well, who do you like?
So I'm emotionally attached at the hip to the New York Mets, the Metropolitans, who play in Queens, New York, formerly at the Polo Grounds and then Shea Stadium, and now the Holy Grounds at our City Field. And, you know, we're out here in 2022 with a beautiful team led by shortstop Francisco Lindor.
Shortstop who?
Francisco Lindor, who's one of the richest men in baseball now. He got a...
Francisco Lindor?
Francisco.
Oh, Francisco.
Lindor. Yeah, he's from Puerto Rico. born in San Juan, Puerto Rico, just like my mom. So that's important to me.
Nice. Shout out to Mom.
Shout out Isabel. But yeah, no, the Mets are really good this year, and it's the first time they're good in over 7 years. So it feels great to be part of a fan base that's like rallying behind something positive. Finally.
All right. Well, I got some Mets trivia for you. You ready?
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. What famous TV shows did Keith Hernandez appear on?
Seinfeld. Everybody knows that.
All right, and there's one other. There's actually a couple others.
Oh, he was on other ones? I didn't know that, actually.
Law and Order.
Law and Order?
Yeah.
What year was that?
I don't know, but this is according to the internet, where I looked up like Mets trivia to grill you.
That.
All right, famous Mets nicknames: Tom Seaver.
Tom Seaver.
Yeah.
God, this is really bad.
Tom Terrific.
Tommy Terrific. Oh, Tommy
Yeah.
T. Yeah. Okay. Sorry.
All right. How about William Hayward Wilson?
I don't even know who that is.
Mookie.
Oh, Mookie Wilson? Oh.
Yeah. William Hayward Wilson.
These are all guys that were playing.
Dwight Gooden, I know it's a little bit older.
Gooden, yeah, everybody knows that one.
Yeah, okay. Edgardo Alfonso.
Edgardo had a popular nickname?
Alfonso, the Fonz.
Oh, the Fonz, okay.
Yeah.
These guys are all older than
And I'm looking for a particular answer to this one. Daryl Strawberry.
Straw.
Yeah, but when I lived in the city, people called him Dino because they thought he looked like Dino on the Flintstones, their dog.
I wonder if that's a Yankees thing more than a Mets thing because, Strawberry played for both the Mets first and he won the 86 World Series and then he went and played for the Yankees in the 90s. And
did he win any World Series with the Yankees? And
I'm going to consult Baseball Reference.
Now I'm wondering, no, don't go into the internet while we're talking, but now I'm wondering like how many players have won multiple World Series on different teams.
Well, it's funny because I frequently have questions like that. I wake up and I'm like, I have a baseball question for myself. And there's one website that answers every single baseball question. It's called baseballreference.com. It is my favorite website personally. If I want to know the score of any game that's happened in the last 150 years, or if I want to know the stats for any player that's played in that time frame, I can just look it up on that website. It's like the craziest, most detailed statistic database for anything I've seen that isn't like classified government information. It's wild.
I remember when you were like in 4th or 5th grade or whatever, you were deep into statistics on like airlines.
Yes.
And airplanes.
Yeah.
And it was noteworthy. I'm not going to say weird because, that wouldn't be pleasant, but it was noteworthy. It was an interesting thing for a kid to have all these facts and figures about that. Are you still, do you have all the facts and figures on baseball? Are you sort of a wonk in other areas now?
So the way my mom puts it is that I don't have like diagnosed ADHD, but I really feel that sometimes I like making lists. I like to compile information on things. And I kind of look back on my lifetime and people who know me know that I really do like to order things and kind of rank things like, everything from airline seat compatibility with where you're flying to or baseball players or anything like that. It's always been something I've been into. And it does definitely go beyond just those interests of mine. Like when it comes to some stuff that I'm doing at school. So I'm joining, or I hope to be joining, the consulting firm at Syracuse University called Slice Consulting. I'm applying to join their ranks pretty soon. And they do a lot of numerical stuff with professional consulting as well, and I'm trying to get into that just to see what it's like. A lot of kids in my majors, I am in a dual major program. A lot of kids in my majors do the consulting stuff because they have brains like me, where they want to be able to identify the best things in a certain area, and so that is something I'm just in general. I like doing that. Yeah.
Right. And so, what are you majoring in?
So I'm in a dual major program at Syracuse called Citizenship and Civic Engagement, which is a community outreach volunteerism based degree. And so it's kind of theoretical in that you're running through a lot of different
like that theoretical volunteerism.
Well, it's
I'd love to help, but the game's on.
It's that's funny, yes, and it's kind of they would like that joke there because it's a brand new major.
They'd be sick of it.
It's 7 years old, but the Maxwell School of Policy is over 100 years old. So this program is in its infancy. And what's nice about it is because it's so new, you also get to have a companion major with something more established. So my companion major right now is policy studies, which is that's what brings home the bread. Yeah.
That's what brings home the bread.
Yeah. And I hope I don't end up working at like Deloitte or like KPMG, because that's where a bunch of kids in my major end up going, and that's a lot of sitting in an office and crunching numbers. But
those are consulting firms who also do accounting.
Yeah, and like
stuff.
risk management and stuff like that. And the only reason I'm dipping my feet into that at school, or hoping to by applying to Slice Consulting, is I just want to know what my options are, and that's kind of part of what going to college is about, is just kind of, really kind of getting a look into what the professional worlds of these industries are like, actually.
Right.
Because I would be lying if I said I knew a lot about it. I want to get into it, and
you're mildly interested. You want to see what's down that path.
Absolutely, and if it's something that I'm majoring in, I can get the resources to push me towards being a better consultant, I guess. And if that's something I end up liking, then I would love to go after that. And if not, there's always going to be something else for me down the line. Right.
It's an interesting thing to hear a kid your age sort of say, like, oh, I think I'd like to go into consulting.
Well, it's really just because where I go to school, Syracuse University has amazing job security for every major, which is one of the greatest things about it. And, I want to be able to see myself realistically, going down a career path where I can not only support myself, but support those around me. Because I feel like a lot of the young, educated intellectuals who graduate from college in the last, 6 or so years, I would say 75% of them are just kind of focusing on themselves and not really trying to give much thought to what's going on around them. And that's not to say that they're just selfish people, but I think, I
think it is, technically.
I think some people are selfish, but
that.
Other people just get too caught up dealing with, setting their own lives up at that age.
Sure.
They forget to. But I want to be able to get to a place where I can, support myself and be able to like buy a cool coffee machine and a dehumidifier, but also give to politicians that I think deserve my money, and politicians that will better the environment around me and those I'm living near. So
right. Well, that sounds noble and good, and heads up.
It's only noble until you actually do it.
And theoretically noble. Yeah. I'd love to help out. So Syracuse, how do you like Syracuse?
Well, it's actually just such a weird place. People ask me the question all the time.
This is a total parent question.
It is a parent
Paris,
question.
what are you majoring in? How's Syracuse?
Yeah, I don't really ever get tired of explaining to people, and some of my friends like Jamie Derbyshire would probably be sick to hear me talk about this, because Jamie likes to rip on me about school and stuff, and he thinks he's all smart. But James,
he thinks what?
He thinks he's smarter than me. But James, if you're listening, we're on a level playing field here. But Syracuse is an awesome place to go to school, because I think there's two main factors behind that. I think educationally, there is this level of flexibility that even though, I've signed up to be in these two specific majors, I can change at any time with relatively no effort. And my dad is always saying, you never know what you're going to want to be. You could wake up tomorrow and want to, write books for a living or do whatever.
Yeah.
Jonathan says stuff like that all the time.
And it's super valuable to know what you don't want to do, to cross things off your list.
Exactly, and that's what I was saying before with the consulting thing. Like, I don't even know if that's something I really want to go into, but it doesn't hurt to try.
No.
And that's what's great about where I go to school, is that the interchangeability of what you're doing and where you're going is always available, and they make that abundantly clear. You do have to, advocate for yourself and say what you want, as you have to do with any school, but they make it very clear to you that you have options, which is really the most reassuring thing. And then I think the second thing on a more social scale about going to where I go to school is even though there's a lot of people, especially compared to where I grew up right here in Rhinebeck, where I graduated with 82 kids in my class, including myself, even though it's massive, the campus is so dense, and Moss can attest to this as well. Everybody sees each other all the time. It's, the Syracuse campus is very large, but everybody's on top of each other all the time because it's dense and all the buildings are, tightly packed together. So between classes, I say hi to like 10, 15 people. It's just like, oh, people that I know from class, or people I,
Right.
went to
Oh, that's
a thing
nice.
with, or people that I have, I follow on social media, and they just say hi to you, and people are generally very friendly.
And is it a Greek school? I mean,
is.
Did people join fraternities and sororities and stuff?
There's always that culture war of, do you join Greek life? Do you not join Greek life? And that wasn't my thing personally, and I'm probably going to give it a look this semester. I probably won't join anything, but I have to.
Is it when
go look
people
at
look and join at beginning of sophomore year?
No, it's a freshman year thing, second
okay.
half freshman year. But I'm just looking because my friends are in it. But it feels like it's 50-50
Yeah.
at this point. I think that maybe a decade and a half ago, it would have leaned more towards being like 60-70%.
Right.
People in Greek life, but I think now people are kind of realizing that as there are more people to confide in around them, and that people are just generally very friendly, and we're kind of living in this post-pandemic world where talking about mental health is more just generally accepted. People feel comfortable not giving into these groups where you're kind of joining to make friends. You can
Right.
kind of do it yourself
And have a social life.
Right, yeah, and it's the people ask me like, well, do you hate the institution of Greek life, or do you hate the people who are in it? And obviously, I don't hate the people who are in it, because more than half my friends at school are in Greek life, and I love them to death, and those people are great. Does it mean it's my thing? No, it doesn't have to.
Right. So the rush for that was freshman year.
Yeah, second
And
semester.
did you go do some of that and then decide you didn't want to join?
No, I never did it. Me and my roommate Hank never did that. And a couple of other of our friends just kind of would watch the process, and we saw it actually made a lot of our friends really stressed. But we helped them through moments of stress, and we were there for them. And I was really fortunate my freshman year, and Moss can also attest to this, that my floor where I lived my freshman year everyone was friends. There was like 25, 30 people in a group chat who were just so close, and everybody really cared about each other, and just having that base kind of felt like being in some sort of fraternity or sorority in itself, because everybody really did care about each other, and we would do things for each other, even when times were rough. Everyone was really awesome to each other.
And how big was your floor? How many people?
Oh, there was like 80 people on the floor, but I think out of those 80 people, the fact that there were so many of us that got along as close as we did was just an incredible. Like, people would all over campus would talk about how our freshman floor was just so fun to be at on a Thursday night or Friday night, because people would go out to the bar, people go out to frats, and they would pregame at our floor. But it wasn't because it was like, oh, it's a party space. It's because the people that were there to begin with were just so genuine and friendly and kind and accommodating that you wanted to be around them,
Right.
especially on the weekend. Like, it's just a crew of jolly good sailors.
It's
they're awesome
amazing.
people.
It's so amazing to fall into that kind of a thing. And is Syracuse very diverse?
So honestly, people will give it hard knocks for being like, a predominantly, because it is a very prestigious university. It's like, oh, there are aspects of kind of snobbiness, and people are like, oh, well, it's not that diverse. But really, when I got there, I was blown away. I was like, wow, I have met people from everywhere here. And I think, again, as the years go on, it gets more and more diverse, and you just meet the most brilliant human beings. And I think that's true with most college experiences, but especially where I go, it's a fascinating place, and there are so many wonderful people to meet.
Right. Huh. It's interesting. Now, in Rhinebeck, not especially diverse place.
No.
Were you very aware of that growing up in this area? I mean, you go to New York City, where you said you went. All of a sudden, it's like, wow, look, there's so many people who don't look like I do.
It's really funny too, because Syracuse is like, even though it is a really big school, and I did mention this before, because it is so dense, you are immediately exposed to everyone who's there. Not just students, not just people in the city, but the teaching staff, and the maintenance staff, and the football players, and the basketball player, and everybody's on top of each other. And so
Right.
you'll ask me a question like, were you amazed at the diversity, or were you amazed at how quickly you made friends? And my answer to you will pretty much always be the same, is that everything happens like that. People listening at home, that's me snapping my finger into the microwave.
How do you mean?
It's instant. everything, you realize things instantly because you're so immersed in the people around you all the time. You leave your dorm, you're seeing swaths and swaths of people all the time. So when it comes to diversity, it took me about a week to realize the people that I was around. It didn't take me like a month and a half, or like I wasn't coming out of my shell. It didn't matter if you were an introvert and extrovert. This was the first year after a pandemic. Everyone was going out. And because of that exposure to who, I was around, you just immediately knew that this is a special place to be and that there are people from everywhere there.
It's amazing that you're there and having a good time. Mm-hmm. And it's like you say, it's sort of a prestigious place. What is it known for, especially?
All my boys in communications holler at me. All my boys in communications. I have most of my close friends actually are in the SI Newhouse School of Communications.
Where Stinky went.
Which is where our shout out Steve Miller, my homie from down the street. He's one of the people who inspired me not only to apply to Syracuse but also to just strive to be there, because he was, he's an alum from, what year did he graduate? Do you know?
I don't know.
The
84 or
80s,
something.
84 sounds about right. And he just explained it to me like, communications or not, this is a place that if you go to learn there, you will walk away a genuinely educated human being, which is, not something that you can say about every higher education institution. Right.
So, it sounds like you appreciate the educational opportunities and sort of all the opportunities that be there. It's sort of a pivot to this. Growing up sort of a white kid in America and all the privilege that comes along with that. Right. And I know lots of kids your age, because of my kids who are all there, and some are more tuned into that than others. At what point did you, and I know there was a point, did you think, wow, look, I'm a white kid white boy and white kid in America. Yeah. I kind of won the genetic lottery.
Everything kind of came very clear to me as the pandemic really, and a lot of, anybody can say that, I feel like. I mean, the pandemic really opened eyes for a lot of people. Just seeing the way that a lot of the recent, news event, and I mean this in the most general sense, so I don't mean like there's a specific event that I'm kind of referring to. Just the way that the media has covered social justice issues in the last 3.5 years specifically has really opened my eyes to how lucky I am to be where I am, to be around who I'm around. Because, mass media has dramatically shifted to ways of, communicating news to, me through my phone.
But also there were big events.
And that's the second part. So it's kind of in tandem the way that it's now being mass produced, and then there are crazy things fucking happening everywhere. Really opened my eyes, and it's not like I was unaware prior to this, but again, growing up in Rhinebeck, you have this level of being sheltered from outside things happening. It's not like you don't hear about them. Obviously, you hear about them. People in Rhinebeck are generally very educated people, and so really people do hear about things and they'll talk about them. But being so contained and so rural and not so far away, but you know what I mean, kind of tucked away. Yeah. You're not given many chances to kind of have a moment of like, oh, wow, this is something so special that I have. So when you did start to see wild occurrences in the news and just relevant things that were going on, it was like, I have to thank my lucky stars, because I have been so
you get a little
coddled.
Perspective,
right? Exactly, and perspective is everything when it comes to stuff like that. I have been so sheltered and coddled to the point of, yes, I'm educated, but I have never experienced hardship like what's going on just with media these days and all of the crazy happenings in the last 3.5 years. Yeah, it's wild.
It's that's interesting that you tie that.
And I talk about that in the most general sense possible, because I feel like it would be unfair to kind of close in on any one specific event that occurred. You could give me an event.
Well, there's a lightning bolt that happens inside you, and that's really what I'm asking about. For me, I was like late 20s. I was living in New York City. I was working for a big company there, and my parents had paid for my college. And I was like, wow, this is when I really started to tune into how lucky I was and how privileged I was. Straight white guy in America, upper middle class.
If you want a bit of a story, and this isn't a reference to anybody in particular, but obviously for me, I had a moment when I went to college for the first time.
For the first time.
Yeah. Well, when I went and got dropped off last August.
Right.
There was a week between the day that I moved in and the first day of classes. So we moved in on like the 23rd or 24th of August last year, and classes started on the 1st of September. So there was just this week of nothing but everyone was just partying every single day, and it was blah, 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 everyone going out all the time. And, I'm just walking around campus with my friends at night and walking, down the Euclid neighborhood, which is where all like the upperclassmen have houses and like host parties. And I'm seeing these people walk around in just like the fanciest clothing, and like, I have like some cool I was really proud of this. I had these Dickies jeans that I got right before school last year that I still wear all the time, and I love them regularly. I was kind of like flexing those as like, my cool new addition before I went back to school.
Did you say flexing them?
Yeah, flexing my cool work
Which means
jeans,
showing them off.
Showing them off, yes. And I'm just seeing these kids walk around in like outfits worth like tens of thousands of dollars doing nothing. Yes. Just crazy name brand designers. Like, wow, these kids are really well off. And then I think about it, I'm like, wow, I'm really well off. Like,
yeah.
This is really wild. And then you spend 8 months with these kids and they have no perspective at all on how their, opinion means something, and about how, their parents' money has influence, and everybody's vote has influence. And some of them just don't seem to care. And I realized that, and it's like, wow, I need to get educated so when I have influence, I can use it positively and not be so lackadaisical and nonchalant about issues that, shape
I love that. I love what you just said.
Yeah.
Sort of every vote has influence. Every vote matters. And on the college campus, are there lots of kids out there like signing people up to vote, getting people out to vote, or people pretty politically active?
Actually, at Syracuse, it's rather politically ambiguous. I've only seen 3 or 4 different times throughout an 8-month span where there's been a political faction. Like, it's actually when the Turning Point USA idiots were at our school doing the recruiting and kind of trying to argue with all the liberal kids. And if you guys don't know who Turning Point USA are, it's the far right wing youth group, kind of funded by the Republican super PACs and donors from the oil industry. And they go around the country to college campuses and say, hey, AR-15s should be legal, which they shouldn't. No one should have an AR-15. So they were out at one of the event fairs one day out on one of the main promenades at school, and I actually got a text from Moss, and Moss texted me and he said, the Turning Point guys are here, let's go down to the promenade and fuck with them. And I had class, so I couldn't go, but he told me.
Certainly my son didn't use colorful language like go fuck with them.
No, never that, actually. Moss would never say that.
I'm sure he said we should go engage them in constructive conversation.
It actually probably was very close to that verbiage.
Yeah.
That's much more like Mossy. And I did walk past them. I didn't have time to chat with them. But, it's these 2 stuffy looking kids who look like they've never gone outside ever. And they're in like these suits with red ties. And like, it's like, touch grass. We know that you 2 are only doing this because you didn't get attention from your parents when you were kids. Like,
or because their parents also believe the same thing.
And they were equally not loved when they were children as well. So
it might be a slightly overly simplistic, insight into how people become ultra conservative,
and that's up for the listeners to decide. But that's what I think.
You don't think we should decide that right now?
I think that's nuanced enough, and we'll let the audience.
All right, fair enough. So sports are huge at Syracuse. Mm-hmm. Are you a fan?
It's so funny, actually. There's kind of a subculture around. Obviously, it's a basketball school predominantly, because we moved from one conference to another a little bit ago, from the Big Ten, which was kind of this very basketball-heavy conference, to the ACC, which is a football and basketball conference. It's one of the big 5 conferences in college sports.
Why did the college move conferences?
Money. Everything is about TV deals and money, and everything wants, everybody wants to make money off
So
the
will they
TV
get
deal.
more money by moving to the ACC?
Yes, correct. Because
Okay.
it's big markets like with Duke and Clemson and all those guys get televised games anyway. And so when we joined, it was probably just a money grab, which I'm not complaining because it makes some really awesome matchups for basketball and football. But still, at the end of the day, that's all they really care about with a move like that.
Who are the main rivals for Syracuse?
We hate Duke men's basketball, and
Really?
and it's really funny because growing up, Jonathan and Isabel never.
These are your parents,
Yeah, my
mom
parents,
and dad,
mom and
also
dad
known as dad and mom.
never ever gave a crap about college sports. My mom, I'd be like, Mom, what did you think about the University of Arizona Wildcats where she went? She was like, well, I had math class with Steve Kerr. And that's about as much as she would tell me. So that I didn't know anything. I would be lying if I said I did about college sports. And then I go to the school and all of my closest friends are just falling over themselves to get to these games. And I'm like, well, I mean, obviously I know there's some hype around it, but I have never experienced it myself. And then by the end of the year... Did you get swept up? Well, by the end of the year, I despise Duke men's basketball.
That's so
I
funny.
hate them.
So when you go to the games with, say, 7 of your friends, and they're all painting the letters that spell Syracuse on their chests, which letter are you? Yeah, I know.
That's a really tough one.
You don't remember.
I really would like to be the S, actually, because I feel like that's the most important letter.
Plus, it looks like Superman.
Yeah,
on
that's
your chest like that.
That's probably a deep-rooted narcissistic answer, but no, it's I don't know. I think it's funny because people also just do the CUSE, and some people will just be like an apostrophe before that, which is kind of funny. Yeah,
and do people do that? Do people actually like paint their faces and their chests and stuff to go to the game?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
We get a crowd every time. I went to a really crowded basketball game. It was definitely one of the best ones that I've been to. It's one of the most fun sports games I've ever been to in my life, actually. We hosted Indiana University in a regular season game. And a little tactic that me and my very good friend Garrett Weeks, shout out Garrett, would do is we would go to the Carrier Dome, now called the JMA Wireless Dome, awful naming rights thing. We would go down to the Carrier Dome, and we would go sit in the student section about an hour before the game.
Wireless Dome.
It's so
That's
stupid.
Ridiculous.
If you haven't heard, guys, the Carrier Dome, which has been the name for the Syracuse football and basketball stadium, changed after like 50 years from Carrier.
But Carrier was probably a commercial thing, no?
Well, that's why they're so post-industrial in Syracuse, because the HVAC industry got outsourced out of there, and so now it's just a post-industrial rust belt of a city, but we won't have to talk about that. I love my city of Syracuse. I love the 315.
Would you think you would ever live there after college?
No.
Okay.
I don't want to. I want to move.
So you love it with an asterisk.
Well, it needs to be fixed. The relationship between the students and the residents of the city needs to be fixed.
Well,
the studentification of Syracuse in the last 40 or so years has really actually separated.
How would you foresee it being fixed? And then how would you see sort of America being fixed?
You're asking me these
being fixed.
You're asking me these massive questions.
Well, sure. These are the good questions. I mean, just think about the environment. It's like we've totally screwed this place up for you, and now drop it in your lap.
Reversible at this point. But if you want to look at it on kind of a macro level, and this is something that I've actually been doing some research on at school. With the help of my wonderful professors in the CCE program at the Maxwell School. The studentification of the city of Syracuse from the actual residents, there's kind of this emotional ethos drift between the people who are, going to school in Syracuse and the people who live there. Apparently that's been kind of drifting for the last 40 or so years, that relationship, and just little things like, the price of the tuition and the type of people that the university attracts has driven, the people apart from each other, on an emotional standpoint. Sorry about that.
Go on. Sorry. If for anybody listening at home, the pauses are because it's raining out, and I left my car out front with the windows open, and everybody's coming in saying like, "Oh my God, the windows are open."
It's pouring. It's raining cats and dogs.
Oh, it's not raining cats and dogs.
But either way, no, yeah, but it's a really massive issue, and I actually proposed a certain plan involving United Way of Central New York, which is just one of the most wonderful organizations that I've ever worked with.
Which organization?
United Way of Central New York, whose offices are
United Way is amazing.
United Way is one of the nonprofits that really is out here doing some of the most awesome humanitarian work in not only the Central New York region, but right here in the Hudson Valley as well. You should definitely consider giving some money to them sometime soon. They are really the backbone of some of the communities here in upstate New York. So I propose between Syracuse University and United Way of Central New York that we have a program where we deliver free groceries paid for by the university with the help of Syracuse University students volunteering to deliver those groceries, and it would be through the Shaw Center, which is it's this student relations center that kind of helps community outreach in the community, kind of trying to bridge that gap between the citizens of Syracuse and the students there. And I just think working on a project where we can get the university helping out these people in the community is just something that we can do to bridge that gap of emotion.
That's amazing. So you had this idea and you thought, well, I'm going to go propose it. How did you decide to propose it to the United Way?
So I had an internship with them for a while. It's something that's very much still in the works. I still have a lot to learn in my programs at school, but it's kind of just in its spitballing phase. Like, I've kind of written down a bunch of notes that I want to present to my professors and United Way in the future. My internship is over with them, but they have my email and they know who I am, and they were lovely with me. So
can you re-up and do another internship with them?
I might. I'm kind of looking to go towards more of my passion of transportation and trying to fix the public bus system in Syracuse and kind of create more sustainability with that right now. But if I tend to, if I want to go back to tending to that project with United Way of Central New York, they have my contact information. We can definitely.
They're not going to call you and say, "Hey, Harris, do you have any ideas?"
They're not going to see my caller ID and be like, "Oh, who's that?" They'll know who I am, and I would like to get in touch with them.
It's a great idea, and lots of people have great ideas, but it'd be fabulous if you followed through on that.
I would love to.
Make it happen, and not just fabulous, but eventually you're going to go out and want to get a job somewhere and be a great thing in interviews. Like, oh, well, I saw this need, and I went out and I worked with United Way, and we made it happen. Yeah,
and that's that experience with United Way, kind of just working on researching, solutions for humanitarian aid. That was the most valuable experience that I've had at any level of education in my life. Just kind of being able to have a little bit of insight into how problems are solved on a multi-step level while still aiding people in your own backyard and helping out people who are essential to the community that you live in.
Right.
And just kind of having that emotional connection and want for your neighbor and neighbor X, whoever that may be, to have a better life. I really felt like that was something that I loved learning about this year.
Right. Now, you mentioned transportation. What's the matter with the Syracuse bus system?
There's a lot of issues, from lack of service to areas of the city that need it more, and just bus sustainability. It's so funny because people can look at a public transportation system and say, well, these are issues X, Y, and Z, 1, 2, and 3, but the only way that you can really tackle issues through systematic ways is kind of assessing them and kind of looking at what's really the crux of why this is bad. People complain that yes, okay, so this route, this one route that went right up to my freshman year dorm would never really have a rider on it because there was no use for it. People would complain about it, but it was not useful. A lot of the things that residents would point out and submit as issues to Centro, which is the bus provider in Syracuse, would just be like, well, this isn't useful, not identifying things and being like, well, we could do this. And that's why the Maxwell School and my two majors have really engaged me to think about critical thinking and critical questioning of systematic issues like this. Public transportation system is not doing its taxpayer duty to the people that have paid those taxes. Why? and not just stopping at Y, going in, trying the buses, going from one side of the city to another and taking notes.
Right.
And doing that field research and actually getting in there as opposed to asking theoretical question upon theoretical question.
Sure.
Going in there and actually getting your feet wet and seeing what it's actually like. There's no canopy at this bus stop. It's raining right now. If it was pouring raining in Syracuse, I have to go get groceries 4 miles away. I don't want to have my one reusable bag get soaked.
Yeah.
Put a bus canopy out there. It's just going out there, experiencing it, and taking notes.
Well, you said it's sort of a post-industrial. I guess you said that lots of their industries getting outsourced, so maybe they don't have money for that stuff.
No, and that's why you have to look for federal grants and things like that of that nature.
Right.
Kind of pushing for more money out of the Biden administration before 2024, because God knows what's going to happen that year. And while he has had a lot of actions during his presidency, the infrastructure money has increased marginally, and even though the debt is insurmountable, you see the budget increase, and it does help incrementally. A lot of the buses that we have in Syracuse now are hybrid buses, which is a step in the right direction, but it still means that we're still putting emissions into the air. And I really hope that by 2030 we can get all electric buses in that fleet. That's something that I'm looking forward to in terms of sustainability in that system.
2030, that's 7.5 years from now.
It is. That's the rate. That's the rate, especially with the economic recession that we are supposedly nosediving into right now. We're kind of seeing a lot of delays in all facets of transportation around the world. So, you look at it on a more macro level of a local transportation system, it will affect that for sure. Yeah.
Now, how do you think you became interested in transportation? As I mentioned, I remember you being like way into airplanes and airlines and stuff.
I still am. I still definitely am.
But how did that start?
I could deep dive into the psychology behind me being a kid, but
deep dive. We still have 3 hours left in this interview.
It's funny because I actually won't do that on this. I think what I'm going to do is explain it to you like this: when you're a kid, you always have a truck phase or a monster truck or train phase, and I never
tractors.
I never grew out of it. I just never grew out of it. It's not really any deeper than that. So, and you people may call me immature, a child, but you know what I say to those people? I say, no, not on the air, but people, to those people I say, look at me now. I'm on my first podcast experience. Look at me now. I've had a wild ride.
Yeah, you think this is going to raise your stature in your peer group, having been on this show?
All my Newhouse friends know that this is the nicest podcast studio that any of us have ever been in. So
please, you're already here. You don't need to butter me up.
Come on now.
Yeah, all right. You can butter me up.
Yeah,
keep going.
I know you love that.
All right, I get general questions for the teenager in the booth here. What other podcasts do you listen to?
Everybody, if you like comedy with... a younger millennial / Gen X comedy with no filter.
But you're like Gen Z, right?
Yeah, and Gen. I mean, they just make fun of everybody. It's the Adam Friedland Show. It's 2 comics from Brooklyn. They're really, really funny, and they're a little bit nihilistic, but they kind of just...
What does that mean, nihilistic?
They kind of use satire in a way to kind of point out that everybody's fucked in the end, and it's a lot of poking fun of popular culture and stuff like that, and they make a lot of references to movies that have been out since the 90s and whatever, and they're very funny. They keep each other young. It's Nick Mullen and Adam Friedland, and I love listening to those guys. And everyone who knows me knows I love listening to those guys. So they're really cool.
I will check them out. Yeah, and what about music? What music do you like to listen to?
That's a question that every person from school asks me. What music do you listen to?
All right, close your eyes. You're walking down. Did you say Euclid is where all Euclid, the upperclassmen? Yeah. And what music do you hear?
Oh, you hear a lot of house music, kind of EDM-y stuff. You also hear a lot of the new mainstream rap and whatever all the kids are listening to these days. But then I've noticed actually people who go to where I go to school have a really good taste, and they listen to their parents' music as well. And you'll hear some oldies and be like, wow, that actually, for example, One of my last days that I was at school during my freshman year, I went out for a walk just to clear my mind before one of my finals, and I walked down that Euclid Avenue, and the trees were budding, and it was a gorgeous, like 65-degree day out. And, I was like, oh my god, I'm wearing short sleeves and shorts today, which was the first time I had done that in months because everyone knows how cold it is there. And I heard Janis Joplin coming from somebody's car, and it was just a little moment of like, oh, that's nice. People are listening to
that's sweet.
Yeah, and then people will also listen to like the mainstream rappers and like the house music, and it's like, it's just a great mix. Everybody listens to great music there, and I've been spoiled too because I've surrounded myself with friends with great taste in music, especially my friends Hank, Tobias, all these kids that I knew, just awesome tastes in music, and it really made my experience in my freshman year positive.
What about your folks? What music that they played did you hang on to and think, you know what, this is good stuff?
A lot of the stuff from the 80s my mom listened to.
Like, like Hootie and the Blowfish?
I don't...
You can see her being a huge Hootie and the Blowfish fan.
Like Duran Duran, like Tears for Fears, like the big name brand guys. And then my dad knows a lot of like little niche artists and like show tuney stuff because he knows stuff with
show tuney stuff
because he does Broadway and he's a big producer guy.
Can you sing any show tunes for me right now?
You want me to sing a show tune?
Yeah, that'd be amazing.
I don't want to do that on air, but what I will do is I will recommend. Have you heard? I actually listened to a theatrical performance recently that blew me away, and I would recommend to everybody.
Let's hear it. What is it?
David Bowie has a recording of Peter and the Wolf from the 70s that's out on vinyl, I think, and it's on Spotify now. And when I was in San Francisco over winter break, we were doing a lot of driving between Napa Valley and the Bay Area. And, that car trip is like an hour and a half, but there are these little 3.5-minute songs of the entire composition of Peter and the Wolf. Is that by Tchaikovsky? Who is that by?
Prokofiev.
Okay.
Yeah.
And Bowie is narrating all the different characters along with all the different instruments that represent the different characters in the play.
Right.
And it's brilliantly done.
You pop quiz. I don't know the answer. What instrument represents the wolf?
Is it the bassoon?
I was going to guess that. It must be if we were both thinking that.
It must be the bassoon.
The bassoon. There you go. It's amazing. I've actually heard that, the David Bowie thing. And I love it. And I love Peter and the Wolf, which, I guess was written, I'm pretty sure it's Prokofiev, as a way to get kids into symphonic music.
And I feel like, I don't know, when I heard it for the first time, it was like, wow, I've heard this before. In fact, I think I'd heard the entire composition of the play before, but without the narration, and then hearing Bowie's voice on top of it and how like he can change and warp his voice to do different tones and characters, just kind of was like, wow, this is an awesome.
Peter went out into the bright green garden.
Right? Yeah. I thought that was really cool, and it was just another testament to what an amazing all-time performer he was, and how he can do really any medium of performance he wanted to and get away with it.
He was just amazing superstar. And so which music of your parents drives you crazy? You're like, ugh, stop, enough with Led Zeppelin or whatever.
No, I could never get tired of Zeppelin, but sometimes when Jonathan, my father, plays show tunes in the car, I'm like, dude, like he actually listens to the Sirius XM channel with Broadway tunes, and my mom cannot stand it. Neither can I.
Oh, really?
I think deep down, my sister Rena really does like listening to it, but she won't admit it. I think kind of that might be the truth.
She's developing a soft spot for show.
I think she's had it. She has a little sparkling theatrical past. She knows that. If Rena hears this.
And you? Did you ever? What did you do in high school? Were you in the theater? Were you?
No, I was never. I was never my thing. My mom, when I was really little, my mom signed me up for doing theater camp at the barn down on is that 9G or 9?
Yeah, I think it's 199.
199.
Yeah.
And I was like 3, and we were doing Robin Hood, and I would just scream and kick and cry because I didn't want to sing in front of people, and I was just so upset that I had to do that. But
you still won't even sing a show tune for me here. I won't
even sing a show. I will always avert that question and that entire concept. But I don't have the chords for it. But if I did, That would be awesome.
Yeah,
One of my biggest
I wouldn't
regrets is
mind.
not ever being able to play an instrument or sing like with a beautiful voice. But I feel like it would be such a cool
Never
flex.
played an instrument in high school or anything?
I played bass guitar with Moss. We took lessons together. He would play this awesome, I think it was a Fender. It was like this blood orange Fender with air, like it had space in the in the body of the guitar, but it was an electric guitar. And then I had this awesome sparkly blue 3/4 size Fender Stratocaster bass, and we would go see this lady who did
Remember her?
What was her name? She was awesome. She's from Woodstock, I think. She taught me and Moss how to play the guitar and the bass, and we would all jam out together at Mark's Music. Rest in peace, Mark's Music, one of the coolest music stores.
It was
in the
pretty
Hudson
cool up
Valley.
there.
Awesome place. I really wish it was still around, right above the Oaxacan Food Market, by the MHV Bank on Route 9 in Rhinebeck. Throwback to that. I missed that place. It was cool. But yeah, me and Moss used to do lessons with the guitar. And I always found it to be difficult, honestly. My brain was always like 2 steps behind on how to play the bass guitar, but sometimes we would jam out and it would be pretty awesome.
I think some people's brains are just wired that way to be good at that or good at some other stuff. And what do you do extracurricularly at college?
Well, in the last year, what I was doing extracurricularly was trying to get my shit together. I really didn't.
What form did that take, and why did you feel the need to get shit together?
Hitting the books. It's because.
Oh, I see.
It's
homework.
It's that. I mean, because it's not like I didn't have time, and I didn't join a frat or anything. It took me all of last year to really just get my feet set and feel comfortable. Being by myself, training myself how to do this work all the time, because this isn't high school level work anymore. This is professional, almost level stuff. For the first time in my life, I was having to do, and remind myself to eat enough and sleep enough, and don't forget to shower, and don't forget to exercise, and maintain healthy relationships with my friends and people around me.
Right.
And so just learning how to do that all on my own in the first year I'll admit it definitely kept me from being able to really go out and try to join something. But this year I am looking forward to joining Slice Consulting, which is going to be a really big part of what I'm doing this year, hopefully.
Right.
And beyond that, I hope I can just kind of really be there for my friends as much as I can, because that's something I care about. And I know that kind of sounds like, well, he's being lazy and he's not saying another thing. Well, but I think it's very important for everybody around my age to kind of just check up on their friends and be there for them when it's when it's needed, because that's what friends are for. And that's one of the biggest things I learned at college last year. It's
that's just enormous. I mean, that's the best, to check up on your friends, and especially if they're having a hard time, because it really just makes a difference. So it's what everybody says. The number one best thing you can do is just be there for them.
Absolutely.
Look at you looking at the clock. Are you bored? We are running out of time. But speaking of checking up on your friends, you grew up a boy, and boys are taught, and this is one of the things that kills me, from the get-go: stiff upper lip, don't be so sensitive, boys shouldn't cry, all of this stuff. Did you feel that in your youth? That
Absolutely.
There was some expectation
that is totally because of my parents and the way they raised me. They're two of the most loving, caring, empathetic people I have ever met in my entire life. And there is no human being who should not be allowed to emote in any way. I think that is just one of the core basic human rights that we are all born with and should have for forever.
But you must have had gym teachers or coaches or whatever. I mean, I think boys get this all over the place. Buck up.
There's a stigma of just, you're going to deal with it no matter what. And to that I say, you have to teach yourself how to deal with life and things that are flung at you. Yeah. But it doesn't mean that you can't take a step back, take a deep breath, ask yourself how you are, ask yourself what you need, and then move on again, because that's how you can continue tackling those problems to begin with, which is, just taking care of yourself.
Right. And how sweet that you had parents that encouraged you to do that.
They're the best.
Feel the feels.
They're the best.
Well, say that one more time.
My parents are the best, and they have done so well by me and my sister. They're the best. I love them.
That was Harris Burkhart saying that, and now we're out of time. Thanks. It's been a wonderful hour. Thanks for being here.
Normie, thank you for having me.
You're the best. And everybody have a fabulous Friday. Stay dry.
Let's go Mets, guys. Come on.
Let's go Yankees.